up, fantasy fans, sci-fi fans, classical fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, narrator of The Gallant by Janny Wirtz. And today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of July. Just going to do a brief review of all of them. It was a pretty heavy month, actually. This is the last full month before I go back to nursing school here in a couple weeks, actually. So I was wrapping up some classical reads that I've been wanting to get to, making some more traction in different series and stuff, and in different authors' bibliographies. And yeah, it was a great reading month, actually. I have quite a few 5 stars. I had a reading challenge that I kind of failed, that I kind of passed, depending on how lenient I want to be with myself. I was going to read 7 books in 7 days, and I did read 7 books in 7 days, but they were not the planned 7 books. And I did not catch up on Janny Wirtz's Wars of Light and Shadow. That will have to be something I do either Christmas time or probably around Christmas time. I will catch up on the series or complete the series. I have 4 books left in that series, and I powered through 2 of them in like 10 days, and I loved them. But, you know, I wanted to take my time, especially with what I've heard about Storm Fortress coming up. But with no further ado, I'm going to get into the different things that I read in the month of July. So I actually kicked off this month with Antimatter Poos, which I do not have a physical copy of. This is actually not a great place, not a great read for me. I believe I gave it 1 or 2 stars. Let me see. I, in fact, gave this book a 2 stars. Yeah. So this is book 2 in the Mickey 7 series by Edward Austen. Everything fun and zany and weird about the first book kind of was less so in this one because you don't have Mickey the Expendable. He is no longer an expendable. He's just Mickey, or he's still Mickey 7, but he's just Mickey. And while I love that for Mickey, it did make the story just kind of a run-of-the-mill sci-fi romp. It just really didn't have enough for me. But my next read that I read, and it's crazy to believe I read this in the month of July, because this will probably go down as one of my favorite books of the year, one of my favorite concluding books in a trilogy that I've ever read, ever. That is The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. This eclipses book 1, Wolf Hall, and book 2, Bring Up the Bodies, by such a massive margin. I gave book 1 5 stars. I gave book 2 4, even though it's closer to like a 4.5 or a 4.4. But I've just been using Goodreads, so I've just been going with solid star ratings, like my friend Tom Orange does, just like make a decision, you know? And I gave that one a 4. This is a 5, emphatic 5. This book is excellent. You really get into the characterization of Thomas Cromwell, and it really comes full circle with Wolf Hall. A lot of the lines, famous lines from the first book in the series, the titular book in the series, Wolf Hall, come full circle in this book. This is an absolute masterpiece of a novel. I hope to reread it one day. It absolutely blew my socks off. My favorite book 3 in a trilogy, probably ever. Absolutely adored it. Next up, I read Abe Sapien, The Drowning and Other Stories. This is part of the Hellboy universe. Really loved it. I read BPRD. That was a 4 star for me, I believe. I read BPRD Omnibus Volume 5. I read a lot of Hellboy comics this month as I'm trying to wrap up that universe before I go back to school. And then I read, I don't have it with me. Let me grab it. I read Traitor's Knot by Janny Wirtz. This is an absolute 5 stars. It is the first book in the series that does not eclipse the book that came before it. Peril's Gate is still my favorite, though this book is excellent, very much deserving of its 5-star rating. Absolutely adored it. The trials and exploits of Arathon here, you know, there was an amazing triumph for this character at the end of the last book. And, you know, he kind of leveled up in a way, both power-wise, emotionally, intellectually, but there are still challenges that very atypical to what most fantasy protagonists have to go through, but he's still challenged in many different ways. You have really fun stuff that Janny Wirtz plays with in this one. Necromancy is explored in this book, and it's just really great. I loved Traitor's Knot. I also read, let me get that over here. I don't have a physical copy of it, but I read 12 Months by Jim Butcher. So this book actually, so I've had a somewhat turbulent relationship with the Dresden Files series. Haven't loved a lot of them, mainly because of Dresden's pervy nature. In fact, I think his internal monologue is so pervy that the character of Bob is less comedic, just because Dresden is just as thirsty as Bob the Skull. Despite those issues, I still found something to enjoy in most books in the series until I got to Peace Talks and Battlegrounds. Those books I thought were pretty awful. Did not enjoy them at all. I thought I was going to DNF the series after those, but I'm like, you know what? Give it one more try with 12 months. And boy, am I glad I did. This is probably my favorite Dresden Files book I've ever read. It is such a... It doesn't even... like... Jim Butcher has always been a great author. He's always built great worlds with great characters. He's just a little pervy in some of his writing, and I don't like that. That's not even a factor in this book. It doesn't come up once, except for Bob the Skull making a comment here or there, which is expected. That's what his character is supposed to be. I don't mind when the pervy character is pervy. I mind when the internal monologue of this somewhat normal character is examining the breasts of every female character. And this book was excellent. The way it processes Harry Dresden's PTSD, his loss, his grief, his relationships. Really what Jim Butcher does best is his writing of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships. I actually think his romantic relationship writing is a little rough. The way he writes flirting is very awkward and weird. But the way he writes about friendships, about bonds, I think he's one of the best. And he's definitely at the top tier of urban fantasy, of writers who take our world and imbue magical elements into them. That's what's kept me coming back, even with some of the things I do not like about the series. And 12 Months was an easy 5 out of 5. Next up, we have Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. This one's tough because the prose, the imagery, the themes were really well explored. This man's descent into madness, Marlowe's descent into madness. It also has a lot of, sympathy for British colonialism, and it's racist. I'm sure Conrad is less racist than his contemporaries, than people writing at the same time as him. And you can see that in Marlowe's compassion for, the men of the Congo, the Africans. But by today's standards, it is pretty unfortunate. Check out this awesome Mike Mignola cover art, though. I mean, beautiful. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. This was the first book I read in my 7 books in 7 days challenge. I actually finished this not as part of the challenge, but I finished it right around the same time. Let me grab this as well. The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. This is book 1 in his Book of the Ice series. I believe I gave this a 2 or a 3. Gave this a 3. So this is the lowest I've ever ranked a Mark Lawrence book, and that is mainly because Yaz, the protagonist in this book, I did not feel was as strong as Nona Grey, not as strong as Jorgancraft, not as strong as Prince Jalin from the Red Queen's War, not even as strong as Nick Hayes from the Impossible Times trilogy. Thought it was his weakest protagonist. Felt like Katniss Light at times, but I'm currently in the middle of The Girl on the Mountain, and I'm enjoying that one quite a bit more. It branches out, it has more perspectives, and because Yaz is not Nona Grey, I think those added perspectives actually enhance the story instead of relying entirely on Yaz's POV. But yeah, this book was not a bad book, but a bad book in comparison to other Mark Lawrence first books in a trilogy, I would say. Maybe bad is the wrong word, but not as strong. Still worth the read, just not the place I would start with Mark Lawrence. I read an entry from an author that I've enjoyed all their works, but this book absolutely blew my socks off, and I'm talking about While Darkness Gathers. This is an easy 5 out of 5 stars. This was excellent. Crazy how he was able to introduce a whole new cast of characters set within this world, the world of his Edan trilogy. And honestly, I think I feel a stronger connection to these characters than I felt to the characters at the end of Way of Edan, or possibly even at the end of Prophet of Edan. I mean, these characters' characterization within this very short book compared to the Edan books is astounding. I mean, he's grown so much as an author. Philip Chase, fellow YouTuber Philip Chase, his strength at characterization is on full display here because you have a much smaller page count. The chapters have this vignette style. We're jumping from perspective to perspective, and most of these chapters are 2, 3, 4 pages. All of that just works really well within this story. Now, it's not just new characters. You have old returning characters like Orvindil and Norn and Sequara, but the limelight is mainly on these 3 protagonists that are introduced in this book. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. The world of Eormenland still has so many stories to be told, and I am excited to return back to our trio in future stories. I loved this book. 5 out of 5 stars. I don't think it is as high of a 5 stars as the Adan trilogy as a whole, though I think this novel eclipses any one of the novels that comprise the Adan trilogy. Loved it. And then this is the next book I had in that challenge, and that's In the Shadow of Their Dying, which Michael R. Fletcher can be kind of hit or miss for me sometimes. I've read a lot of books of his that I've really loved, and I've read a few that just didn't quite work for me. This is one of his best. I think his collaboration with Anna Smith Spark really pushes him. Okay, so I've read a couple books with him and Clayton Snyder. Both really talented authors. Norleska Groans was really great. A War to End All was not really my cup of tea. But, you know, these authors are so similar. I think Anna Smith Spark actually pushes Michael R. Fletcher a little bit harder because her style is so different. She writes from the point of view of this demon-like creature, whereas Michael R. Fletcher writes from the point of view of these mercenaries and this thief, or not a thief, an assassin. Really, really, really fun story. You'll read it in one sitting. In the Shadow of Their Dying, 5 out of 5 stars. Brilliant. Both authors at the top of their game. Next up, I read these unfinished works. Well, I guess Lady Susan is finished, but I read Lady Susan, The Watsons, and Sanditon by Jane Austen. Now, Lady Susan is a really fun story told through letters about this woman who is trying to steal her daughter's suitor. And oh man, Lady Susan is so toxic. She's like a female Heathcliff, but it is really fun. It's a lot more comedic than something like Wuthering Heights. The Watsons actually suffered the most from its unfinished state. It's very unfinished. I think it had like 7 or 8 chapters. Did seem to be a pretty promising story. The main character of Emma Watson, despite sharing a name with Emma from Emma, actually had more in line with Fanny from Mansfield Park. She reminded me a lot of Fanny, actually. And then my favorite from this collection was Sanditon. I think this would have gone down as one of Jane Austen's best novels if she could have completed it. I've thought about checking out the Sanditon TV show, but I don't know. I'm not a big TV show watcher, so who knows if that'll happen. But I did enjoy Sanditon quite a bit. I gave this collection a 4 stars, mainly because The Watsons was in such an unfinished state. The next book in my challenge, I read the 3 plays of Euripides, Alcestis, Medea, and the Bacchae. I mainly bought this for the Bacchae, which is referenced thoroughly in Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I actually came away loving all 3 plays. All 3 got 5 out of 5 stars. The collection got 5 out of 5 stars. I bought another collection of 10 plays of Euripides, also translated by Paul Roche, because I love these 3 plays. Paul Roche translated so much. You could find reviews of this on my YouTube, on my TikTok. I absolutely adored this one. Then I read Hellboy in Hell and more BPRD comic books. I gave Hellboy in Hell 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the conclusion of Hellboy's story. BPRD, I'm pretty sure every volume has been a 4 or 5 stars in this Hell on Earth arc. Hell on Earth as an arc is a 5 out of 5. I absolutely love this arc. And then I read The Builders by Daniel Polanski. So this is like an Abercrombie-esque Redwall, like every character is an anthropomorphic rodent. And it's so much fun. You have the captain, who's this very small, unassuming mouse, but he just has so much aura. He puts his crew together. You have Bonsoir, the stoat. Oh, I love Bonsoir. So cool, so suave, so goofy in his own way. Every character is so much fun. You have Elf, the owl with 1 wing. Every character is so vibrant. They just jump off the page, and you will finish this in one sitting. The Builders is an absolute rollicking good ride. More people should read The Builders by Daniel Polanski. That was part of my 7 books in 7 day challenge, and the last book from the challenge that I actually completed. But I did finish While Darkness Gathers. I did finish The Girl in the Stars, which were not part of the challenge, and I also finished Moby Dick, which was not part of the challenge. I was audiobooking this during that week, and oh man, do I love Moby Dick. 5 out of 5 stars. 5 out of 5. I also gave The Builders 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5 stars for Moby Dick. I mean, they call it the Great American Novel for a reason. This was brilliant. This was Herman Melville. I mean, round of applause. Like, this book is amazing. And, people who say it's a textbook on whaling, I think they're missing the point of what makes Moby Dick so excellent. This is the American Odyssey. It is the story of Ishmael and his friends aboard the Pequod and Captain Ahab's revenge against the white whale who took his leg. It is mythic. It is epic. It felt like I was reading an epic poem. It felt like I was reading something written by Homer or Virgil or Sophocles, Euripides. It just felt like an ancient tale, but so entrenched within our American history. Herman Melville should be lauded as one of the great American authors. This book is excellent. I personally would disagree with Melville that whaling is one of the most intrinsic professions within American history. I do think the way that he brought this profession to life in this novel does cement this as one of the great American novels. Brilliant. Then next up, I read more BPRD. I read Abe Sapien, The Dark and Terrible. Amazing story with Abe Sapien, 5 out of 5 stars, that follows him as he has left the BPRD and he's kind of wandering through America and befriending different people and kind of finding his purpose within this world. This is what Hellboy was supposed to be, you know, this monster that doesn't look like everyone else, but he just wants to help. And yeah, I think Abe Sapien is one of the best characters within the Hellboy universe, and I will always enjoy reading books with him in it. Then I read James by Percival Everett, and I'll be honest, this was sitting at a 3-star until the third act of the book, and there's some revelations in that third act that really threw it into 4-star territory, and that's where I landed on it. It's a 4-star. This is a reimagining of Huckleberry Finn told from the point of view of Jim the Slave. Really brilliant story here. Brings a newfound depth to not just Jim the Slave or James, a newfound depth to all the characters within Huckleberry Finn, including Huckleberry Finn himself. There's a lot of depth added to Huck as a character in this book, and I thought Huck was brought to life beautifully, Jim was brought to life, James was brought to life beautifully, his family was brought to life beautifully. Great book, should not be skipped. It's an 8-hour audiobook, really short, well done audiobook. And yeah, absolutely worth your time. And then I read Lionhearts, Book 3 in the Essex Dogs trilogy by Dan Jones. This was really good. This was a 4 out of 5. Lowest I've rated any of the books in the trilogy. Books 1 and 2 I gave 5 out of 5. Essex Dogs and Wolves of Winter. This one, a lot... in a very different way, it felt like Return to Adan for me, whereas book 1 and 2 felt like a duology, you know, A Way of Adan, Prophet of Adan felt almost like a duology, with the third book being like an epilogue type story, though Return to Adan is a lot more epic in scale than something like The Lion's Heart or Lionhearts. That's what it's called, Lionhearts. Lionhearts is very much an epilogue to a duology, it feels, even though it is the concluding book in a trilogy. You follow Loveday Fitztalbot after the fighting is over and as he tries to set up this life and, you know, leave the fighting behind, but, you know, problems ensue as they often do. And yeah, after that, I read Koshai the Deathless is the last thing I read this month, and it was kind of a miss for me in the Hellboy universe. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Yeah, it wasn't really my cup of tea. But yeah, and currently I am reading Kings of Paradise. I'm almost done. I wanted to include it in this video, but I'm not quite done yet. Surprisingly, Ruka has fallen off as my favorite character in this story, and I really love the character of Kale. He just keeps on having training montages, which seems like it should be repetitive and I shouldn't enjoy it. But first he trained in the Navy, then he trained at this monastery, now he's training with the Empire, and I just love seeing his growth, not just as a fighter and as a tactician, but just as a young man. Whereas Ruka's growth is a lot bloodier and a lot dastardlier, and Grimdark fans are going to love Ruka. Lovers of the Bloody Nine are going to love Ruka. If you like the Shattered Sea trilogy by Abercrombie, Prince Yarvi, you'll really love Ruka, but I personally like Kale more. I like more heroic characters. I've always been that way, and this book is no exception. I really want to get to the end of Kale's story, and the end of... I enjoy Ruka, it's just Kale is more my cup of tea. And yeah, that's what I've been reading. Let me know what y'all read in the month of July, if y'all read any of these, and what y'all think of them. And as always, stay safe, guys. Peace.